If you're ready to find your dream job, nothing is worse than feeling overwhelmed about what you think you should be doing. It's why I created a new checklist for you called Your Mid-Career Job Seekers Checklist. This checklist will help you get organized, strategize a plan, and help you execute that plan to start building your mid-career GPS right now. You can get it for free on my website at johnneral.com. You can also check the show notes or the featured section on my LinkedIn. But if you're ready to start building your mid-career GPS, let me help you get started. Download this free checklist and strategically, let's start figuring out whatever is next for you and your career. Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. In the last episode, I shared how trusting my gut was instrumental in helping me address an unexpected health situation. Perhaps you can relate. When you think about your career, how well do you know yourself? You know, the good, bad, and the ugly about what you do well and what you need to work on. Or how well do you know your values and how they determine how you show up each day for yourself, your team, clients, and your organization? Today, you will meet Antonia Bowring, a highly credentialed executive coach and strategic facilitator whose candid nature helps her clients be more pragmatic and be held accountable to achieve what they desire most. In this episode, you will learn what self-coaching is and why it's a powerful tool for your personal and career development. Plus, you'll learn why knowing your values is vital to building the career you desire and the one thought you need to believe to help you optimize your results, whether in your life or career. Let's get started. Hello, my friends. This is episode 194 of the Mid-Career GPS podcast. I'm your host, John Neral. I help mid-career professionals who feel stuck, undervalued, and underutilized show up to find a job they love or love the job they have using my proven 4-step formula. My guest today is Antonia Bowring, the author of Coach Yourself, Increase Awareness, Change Behavior, and Thrive. I hope you'll be open to how increasing your awareness will help you navigate your mid-career GPS to whatever is next for you and your career. As I went back and listened to our conversation, I'm grateful for the powerful moments and insights we shared to help you along your leadership and executive journey. And I want you to pay close attention to how Antonia introduces herself. Do you have something like that to grab someone's attention? Remember, the goal when networking or interviewing is to be memorable, and Antonia certainly is. So get ready for this conversation. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Antonia Bowring.
Antonia Bowring, executive coach. That means I'm a professional reframer, cheerleader, and hard-ass partner in honesty.
Oh, I so love the way you introduced yourself there. And I think for everybody who's listening today, as we get into this conversation, you are going to know exactly why those three things ring true. Antonia, everybody has a mid-career moment, that thing that helped change or reframe their career path or their perspective on things. I'm wondering if you can share with us what your mid-career moment was.
Oh, it's too early to cry in the podcast, but I will tell you, it was being fired. Yeah, I can't remember how old I was, but I took on a big new job. I wasn't totally prepared. I think they were muddled and confused, and it was a very bad fit. And it was soul destroying until I realized that it was the greatest gift I ever got.
Like you, I got fired as well. I got fired early on in my career. I'm wondering, as you've processed those events, while there's a lot of perspective on the other side of it, how do you think people actually get there to be grateful for being fired?
Well, I think you have to look at it inside a bigger arc, right? It in the moment,
Mhm.
I think you just got to get through it, and you need a support system, and a coach would be great, John.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
yes, yes. Uh, and it comes with perspective. But the sense of empathy I developed was I think life changing. And also, I have to say, I remember thinking, wait a second, I'm a winner. I'm a superstar. I don't get fired. Other
Mhm.
people get fired. And so it was very humbling.
Absolutely. In the world of education, as we know, we don't get fired. Our contract is not renewed. It's such a
Yeah.
more gentler way of saying we don't
Yeah.
want you to come back. Um, and it is absolutely one of those things that for many people who listen to this show have experienced in some way, shape, or form. Aristotle said, quote, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, unquote. And Antonia, that quote anchors one of your book chapters in your
Yes.
brand new book called Coach Yourself, Increase Awareness, Change Behavior, and Thrive. And
Mm,
you talk in your book about knowing your values and
mm,
what's important to you as a critical first step in determining your next career move.
hmm.
What values do you see most common in the people you coach that they emulate or do their best to emulate every day?
Yeah. I thought you were going to ask me my values because that's easy. I can list those off. Honestly, John, I'm going to tell you, it's not that easy to find common ones, and I think that's a very good thing.
Mhm.
There is often something around teamwork, being part of a team. I'm paraphrasing, right? Because I'm very strict about I want one word when you give me the value. Um, there's usually something around culture, like I can have an impact. And there is, I think the most common is going to be something around learning, um, yeah, learning, curiosity, that type of thing.
Well, you've piqued my curiosity. What are your values?
Well, I thought you'd never ask. So one is possibility. It used to be positivity, but I changed it after TED 2023. Possibility, curiosity slash learning mindset in service of, and I can explain that a bit more, gratitude and productivity.
Can you pick one of those values for us and explain it to us as why it is so powerful and important to you?
Oh, one. Um, well, maybe one that's most sort of linked to career, I guess. I started out bright eyed and bushy tailed, wanting to change the world, and went into microfinance and worked around the world with women, helping them access financial services, poor women. And that was in service of very big, lofty goals. I am still in service of, but the way that value is activated, and I want to come back to what activated is really important here, is activated through my coaching and workshops and speaking, which is more about in service of helping others develop their potential.
Can you tell us more about what you mean by how it's activated?
Yeah. So when I'm working with a client and I start every single coaching engagement with a values exercise, because for me, forget about a North Star if you don't know your values. Like
Sure.
that's the basic building block, right? And I I talk about it in I want you to tell me what your values, when we go through an exercise, but I also want to know how are you activating them every single day? Give me examples. And if someone is going through career transition, for any career coaches listening, this is a beautiful, beautiful coaching tool to say, how do you want to activate that value in your next role? Or how will you activate that in your next role? And it can unlock a lot of questions.
As I'm listening to you, I am having this internal battle between as a coach and how I help people as well, but also my time when I was hiring talent and I was developing talent within various organizations.
Mm,
One of the things that I often find is so difficult for people in career transition is to clearly and communicate what they want or what they want to do. And the word that always gets me, well, there's a bunch of words that always get me, but the one word that tends to stand out, and I see this a lot, especially on LinkedIn, is I want to make a better impact.
yeah.
Okay. And I have this kind of visceral reaction where I almost want to kind of like, bleh, like, because I
Yeah.
just don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And who's ever posting about it, they haven't shared exactly what that means. Antonia, how do you take people from putting that out there to really owning and activating on that value?
Mm, yeah. We we do tend to talk a lot in generalities. And you make an excellent point that what makes someone uh, differentiate themselves or show their value add is by being specific, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways into this, and some of it is just hard work, right?
Mhm.
Writing and writing and saying it out loud and dictating it into your phone and running it through chat gpt. I'm a big fan, but keep like getting more specific, you know and also look, here's a beautiful, beautiful way. Look back, right? Like I'll give you an example, teamwork. Oh yeah, I one of my values is teamwork. Okay. I mean, and one of my values is apple pie and motherhood, right? Okay. But this person, when we dug down, she had been, she rode crew in college. And she learned so much about being part of a team, about what she got from it, about what her role was. And she had so much language and imagery, like sensory images from it that she could draw upon. When she could tap into that and talk about, well, I would love to be part of this team at XYZ. That's one of my core values from my crew days. And this is what I mean by X. This is what I learned. This is what I bring. So that was a long winded answer. Looking back at flow stories is one way. And hello, do your research on the job, look at your value, and then go, how do I apply that value in a very specific way?
I didn't think you were being long winded at all because we needed that context to really kind of understand. And the example of that person you worked with, where they shared why being on crew was so important for them in terms of teamwork. As a follow up question, can you share with us a little more about what a flow story is?
Mm, mm. Well, yes, I would imagine that, John. Are you in flow when you do these interviews?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm feeling in flow, and just the questions you asked me before we started. So flow is, there's a lot of blah blah about it in social media and all over, but it's really, when are you focused on something, in kind of something that you're really interested in, you're challenged enough, but not challenged that it creates anxiety, but in an energetic way, you're humming, but in a very energetic way. um I I'm in flow right now with you.
Same.
Absolutely. I'm in flow when yesterday one of my clients tells me, I made the best decision that we discussed by going to that meeting in England, not that meeting somewhere else. And here's what came out of it. Right.
Mm.
So I'm in flow too when I'm writing, and,
Yeah.
and it's moving.
Well, and how powerful would it be for somebody who is actively job seeking and they go into an interview and they can get into that flow state where they are completely detached from the outcome and solely focused on telling their story from a place of value and service and building that relationship with the hiring manager.
And I love the way you said that, like letting go of the outcome. This is the basis of mindfulness, right?
Yes.
Letting go of the outcome and focusing on the present and the process. And I would add one word, well, maybe two: go in curious. If
Mm,
you tap into your curiosity, it will lower your cortisol, it will lower it will lower the anxiety. Tap into your curiosity.
mm. That is so powerful. One of the things I want the listeners to know is that you and I particularly spent about 10 or 15 minutes before we actually started recording talking about things about your book and sharing some stories and things like that. And we do that as a way to just kind of get acclimated with each other a little bit more after our initial conversation and kind of see where this conversation is going to go and everything. But I do that because I think it's so important we take time. And it's one of those things that I absolutely appreciated in reading your book was this notion of slowing down, taking time, be introspective, be reflective. And a huge component of your book is about self-coaching and how somebody can coach themselves when they're adding on to their work with a coach or what that specifically may look like. And where I want to go with you here is, in your experience, how does somebody coach themselves, quote unquote, well enough that they're, quote unquote, doing it right? What's that look like to you?
Well, the short answer to that is that's a lifelong journey. Right? That is just a lifelong journey. And ideally, we're always coaching ourselves, because think of any kind of athlete. I actually was just watching the tennis Breakpoint on Netflix.
Mm.
You coach through this tournament, then there's the next one, then there's the next season. And we have seasons in our lives and careers. And how we coach ourselves is going to look different. I would say the through line on that is, it's not just time. Time is, again, like the building block. You got to set aside a little bit of time, but it's the focus and the space inside that time, right? I can sit down for half an hour and not get through or accomplish much. I can sit down for 15 minutes, and if I have intention and focus, I can I can I can move a lot further. So it's time plus intentionality. I recommend, I just finished with a coaching client yesterday, and I said to her, what are you going to do to continue the coaching wins? And we talked about her calendaring once a week, time to dig into a topic that she's curious about, but alternating that every other week with going through our notes and picking something out that she wanted to focus on. So, time and intention.
I love how you phrase that, because this is a lifelong journey. I think sometimes we judge ourselves so quickly about, if I don't do it right the first time, there's no point doing it. We get so critical about ourselves in this. And that intentionality piece you brought up is key as well, because we know, and the research shows it as well, that with greater intention and focus, greater results happen. When you have somebody, or you're working with somebody who is getting better at intentionality, what do you see as the results of that?
Well, the easy one is, I actually think two things. What popped in my mind first was consistency. So definitely. But you know what? I also see more self empathy. Definitely. Sort of more kindness. Because when you apply an intentionality, you know that you are focusing on something important. And I find that that also helps develop more grace towards yourself. Yeah. Can I say one thing?
Yes, please.
So when I say intention, focus, that's not always easy. I am also a big believer that we want the environment we're in to support us, right? So simple example, gratitude. One of my core values, something I do, tons of research on gratitude practice and how that raises your happiness or self fulfillment, whatever word you want to use, your positive outlook on the world. It's a great intention. I also have my journal right beside my bed with a pen. So environmentally, I make it easier to do it at the end of the day. So how you set up your world is also, I don't want to negate how important that is, because we can't depend on willpower.
Oh, well, willpower is a limited resource.
Very, very limited. Yeah.
You bring up this idea about self-empathy and more kindness. And somebody who is without question a repeat offender and is, continually working on his own journey about being a little more self-empathetic and kinder and everything, less judgmental, all those kinds of things. This whole concept about self-empathy, before you and I started recording, we talked about 3 words. I am enough. And I remember working with a bowling coach, one of the top bowling coaches in the world, who, after spending a weekend with her at a camp with about 20 people and then getting a private one-on-one lesson, her note to me right at the top of the page said, "You are enough." And it changed the way I thought about myself as an athlete as a person, as an individual. And to this day, I still hold on to that.
Mm.
In our conversation before we started recording, we talked a little bit about how that's a hard thing for people to embrace and a hard thing for people to grasp and believe consistently and repeatedly. I'd love for you to share your thoughts on I am or I am enough
Mm.
and where that phrase impacts and connects to the people you help and you work with each and every day.
Hmm. Yeah. I- So I actually have a tattoo on my arm that says aham, which is Sanskrit for I am, because I couldn't fit it all on my arm, but that is in reference to I am enough. And, uh, y- I hope this isn't a tangent, but for me, first of all, being a coach, John, like you, I we don't do research. Well, we do research and we do me search, right?
Yes.
That is one of the beautiful things of this work. That one of the beautiful gifts is all this me search. And I got an adult diagnosis of ADHD, and that was a total game changer for me in being able to say, I am enough. And that was its own journey. And, that's another podcast, but that was really important. The other thing I would say is I so wish that what I wish we could bottle is I am so much more confident now than I ever was in my 20s, 30s, 40s. I don't want to say too much about my age, but I know everyone, you and I know this, has to go through their own journey, right? Of kind of developing confidence, figuring out they're enough. But what we do as coaches is we can shorten that pathway, right? We can say, well, it doesn't have to take you 25 years. Maybe it's just 10, but that's a lot of work, both with a coach, with others, and your own personal development. And that to me is what the essence of coaching is. How do we give them tools, strategies, love, empathy, reassurance to take that journey and shorten it?
Yeah. That's so well said. It's so at the crux of what we get to do every single day is help people optimize their potential and their results, whether it be in their life, career, relationships, whatever it might be. It's one of the things, like you, I absolutely appreciate and am grateful for about coaching.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And can I say one more thing there?
absolutely.
I also think I am enough. You and I know it might be an urban myth. You have to hear something 7 times to actually hear it. But I like that urban myth. We need to hear that a lot of times in our life. We need to hear that as athletes. We need to hear that as students. We need to hear that as friends. We need to hear that at work. That is something, that is a gift. John, if people take one thing away from today, okay, I challenge any of your listeners to go out to their family or friends or coworker and say, you are enough, and give them that gift.
Oh, absolutely. And additionally, if someone who's listening is in a leadership role, they're managing people, they're developing talent, to take that moment, especially whether it's at a check-in meeting or a performance appraisal meeting, and you're working with somebody who feels like their results are never good enough or they're not valued enough, to reinforce that message of they are enough, they're doing great work. Here's what you appreciate about them. Slow the conversation down and be intentional to focus in on what it is you appreciate about them and their work so they can hear it. We can't control whether they receive it, but so they can hear it. And just like the urban myth, 7 times, figure out how often you can do that. It's a very powerful gift to give to your team as well.
Can I add on to that?
Yes, please.
So I recently did a leadership retreat, day 2 of it. And I started it with a kind of, what do you call that? A dating circle. No,
Speed dating?
Speed dating.
Yeah.
That's it. But it was speed dating for appreciation. And there were about 10 people, and you paired off and you just kept rotating and take 30 seconds each. What do you appreciate about so and so? And then, change roles. And it went really well, went a bit longer. Great start to the day. From a neuroscience perspective, we just aligned everything for collaboration and positivity. I was shocked by how powerful this was. At the end of the day, folks, how was the day? What did you take from it? Expecting some kudos for all the great material I delivered. What did they love the most about the day? The appreciation moments at the beginning.
Yeah.
They said, I don't hear that. People said it to me in a way that I hadn't heard before. We don't do enough of that. So all the leaders out there listening, appreciation moments, just do it. It pays in multiple ways.
Antonia, as we start wrapping up here, what advice would you give someone who's listening to help them build their mid-career GPS?
I want to give 2, and I'll be brief. First is you need 3 people at different times in different quantities, but keep track of this. A career coach at various points, mentors, and mentorship goes both ways. Mentors are so important, and sponsors. The people who are making decisions about your career when you're not in the room. Make sure and what you stand for, and that they can talk about you for you. That's one piece of advice. And the second is, I'm going to say it, community, community, community. You are always looking for the next opportunity. You are always building, I don't like the word network, a community that you are giving to and getting from. Always. And keep it in some kind of database, please.
Well said. I want to thank you for our time here today. And I want to turn the mic over to you now so anyone who is listening can find ways to connect you, follow you, learn more about your book. The mic is yours.
Oh, that's kind. So, few different ways. To buy the book, go to Amazon.com and just search up Coach Yourself and my name, Antonia Bowring. And you can find me on LinkedIn very easily. My name, Antonia Bowring. And on Instagram, it's Antonia_AB strategies. My website is -strategies. And finally, for the folks with ADHD, on TikTok, it's Antonia Bowring 963.
I will make sure all of that is in the show notes. Antonia Bowring, thank you so very much for being an incredible guest today on the Mid-Career GPS podcast.
I'm a fan, John. You are awesome. I already sent your podcast to my son who's at university in England.
Thank you so very much. That warms my heart, and right back at you. My friends, I hope today you have picked up a couple of things about building your mid-career GPS to whatever is next. But here are a few takeaways I want you to hone in on. The first is intentionality. We get our results by being more intentional, and that means taking time to dig into your own thoughts and feelings, but also finding ways to make greater and deeper connections with the people you work with each and every day. Additionally, we also talked about what self-empathy looks like and the idea about you are enough and how you can give appreciation and spread that to the people in your lives and also the people you work with. I highly encourage you to go ahead and get Antonia's book. Again, it is called Coach Yourself, Increase Awareness, Change Behavior, and Thrive. And my friends, remember this. We'll build our mid-career GPS 1 mile or 1 step at a time, and how we show up matters. Make it a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Mid-Career GPS podcast. Make sure to follow on your favorite listening platform. And if you have a moment, I'd love to hear your comments on Apple Podcasts. Visit johnneral.com for more information about how I can help you build your mid-career GPS, or how I can help you and your organization with your next workshop or public speaking event. Don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn and follow me on social at John Neral Coaching. I look forward to being back with you next week. Until then, take care, and remember, how we show up matters.